Hello, my name is Francesco Sepulveda Cerda. I'm a doctoral candidate for the doctoral program Territory, Space and Society at the University of Chile. I'm in my fieldwork stage now, and I am very grateful for the opportunity to share some reflection related to my research. And of course, discuss with you some theme that bring us together in this event. My presentation is called Remembering Rural Childhood for Future Rural Children in Chile. I have to say that although I approach a specific type of childhood in a particular context, I think that a rural childhood in the minority world may be useful for anyone interested in the relationship between countryside and people. Latin American rural territories have undergone deep and constant transformations in recent decades. The dwellers of these territories have observed how in a few years their lifestyles, the landscapes they knew, and their sensory experiences have changed drastically and irremediably. In Chile, as in other countries in the region, there are different processes that have led these transformations. These can include unplanned urbanization and privatization of land, modernization and globalization of production processes, new forms of socialization, drastic geographic changes associated with climate change and overexploitation. What adults knew and experienced in their childhood does not exist anymore and will never be the same. This has generated a weakening of the territorial identity of different rural communities, some of which are facing extinction. A symbolic and a physical extinction of their particular way of life is taking place due to the deterioration of the environmental conditions that allow life. Traditionally, to face this scenario, both the academic world and the nation states in the continent have taken a top-down, urban, and adult perspective, focused on the notion of development. This hegemonic way of seeing countryside has taken for granted three things. One, the forces of capital determine the vast majority of the dynamics in these territories. The leading subjects of this world must be the productive adults. And three, the macrostructural dynamics associated with modern development undermine the agency of the communities in the construction of their identities. These ideas are relevant when we're thinking about the countryside today. However, this perspective is inherited from a modern view of development. It might validate and replicate a colonizing model of control and exploitation of both human and non-human beings. This model privileges the production and reproduction of capital over the production and reproduction of life. In this sense, the reality of children who are subject who do not have a specific role in the productive aspect of the countryside is neglected. When looking at rural territories in Latin America, children are rarely recognized as knowledgeable. They are only considered as objects of political proclamation for the development of dichotomous imaginaries of the countryside, ideal and anti-ideal imaginaries, as Powell, Taylor and Smith says in 2013. On many occasions, the images of rural children constructed by the media, the state, and the academic world are partial and superficial. If they appear as dwellers, they do so as passive and spaceless beings, either in their candid bucolic innocence or in their condition of poverty. They remain outside the discussion related to the territories they dwell because they can't be fully understood by adults. Beyond a difference in roles or status, an ontological gap radically separates adults from children. Children get to know and learn by playing, drawing, and performing autotelic activities. They also relate to other humans and non-human in their territories through these activities. In their otherness, children disrupt several modern categories that are at the center of colonizing thoughts and adult assume. For children, the boundaries between work and play, the animate and the inanimate, the real and the fantastic, the subject and the object are blurred. They challenge the rules, duties, and traditions that adults establish and follow with questions and action that are sometimes difficult to answer or interpret. In Chile, this particular way of knowing and relating is systematically overlooked in rural territories, marginalizing children. Furthermore, this way of knowing and relating is often neglected by institutional discourses that separate children and adults' worlds, highlighting the latter as valid to an asymmetric difference in their development. We adults know, children do not know, not until they become adults themselves. However, we adults only have indirect access to children's experiences. We remember certain fragments of our experiences when we were children. From there, we build and socially share a notion of childhood, a notion that is essential for social and personal identity. This is important because in Latin America, memory is one of the most validated counter-hegemonic tools for a bottom-up reconstruction and defense of local identity. Memory articulates the ways of life of communities with strong territorial roots. Memory resists the programmed and imposed oblivion that has the political purpose of normalizing domination and violence and validates repression. In the case of rural areas, the memory of adults has been an important source of meaning from an historical and sociocultural point of view. For rural communities, the exercise of remembering helped them build their place and their trajectories through time. Even so, facing this actual uncertainty, they are not able to draw a clear path for a mutable countryside and especially for themselves as dwellers. As I mentioned it before, the material references that anchor these memories are often lost or at the edge of extinction. Uncertainty replaces the old projects of identity. We adults no longer know. We do not know because memory does not guide a clear future for rural territories due to their rapid obsolescence. How does a way of life continue for peoples if their material and symbolic constituent elements are constantly in extinction? What I propose is to complement the memory of adults with the present and the presence of rural children in a dialogue about these territories. This is important because the memories of rural childhood of adults are not transparent and are geographically dislocated. Furthermore, in the act of remembering, adults often contribute to the asymmetric construction of a way of being for children based on moral prescriptions. A must-be that is linked to the hegemonic discourses that reproduce the children's subordination. Resorting to the memory of rural childhood to reconstruct a territorial identity is not enough. It is necessary to interweave it with the concrete experiences of children who, from their bodies and practice, build and know their territories in the present. Children do know, not like we adults would like. They know from their perspective, action, fantasies, games, etc. Obviously, this encounter of gazes is not free of conflicts, always present when we face the otherness. However, assuming this conflict from a more symmetrical position seems increasingly necessary to rethink: one, the value of the reproduction of life; two, the no less conflictive relationship that the human being establishes with nature; and three, the hybridization of new identities to give meaning to the trajectories of rural territories. All problems that we adults have not been able to solve alone. In this sense, memory should be open to an intergenerational dialogue so as not to become extinct in a monologue. The identity of these territories are in a dispute between what they were, what they are, and above all, what they could become. This dispute must be solved between different actors and different ways of constructing places and space. We as adults alone have not been able to find alternatives to rural development. Maybe it is time to start looking in other directions, listen to other dwellers, and learn about other ways of dwelling in the rural areas of Latin America. Children are there. They always have been. As adults, we can consider them and build new relations with them to rethink the countryside. They knew as much as we adults knew about the places where they all want to live as communities. Thanks for your attention.